Vex'ahlia from Legends of Vox Machina. And the main thing is we don't need to really worry about this fur because that just is added after. So we've got a plain tunic, a pretty easy belt with a tiny bit of cinching. We've got leggings, the shoe covers that match the belt and the glove, and a little arm sleeve. And she'll be done. I'm just working off the official character art. I find that easiest. We are going to start with the leggings, then we're going to make the top, then we're going to make the belt, the shoes, and all the accoutrements. Maybe not in that exact order, but we'll get there. Next, let's talk about fabric. So, keeping in mind what we're making, I've got this as our main tunic color that everything else is built off of. It is the tiniest bit brighter, a shade off. I've also got this for the details because it is like a greeny blue. This is a touch more green, but it's what I have. I've got this for the leggings and the arm pieces. Now I wish this was just a touch darker, but again, we're working with what we have. Then I've got this for the boots with this as detailing, although I might see if I have something darker. And then we've got this fur. So this one might switch out for something a little darker, just because it's very too close tonally. I just like the stretch in this, and I don't have a lot of brown stretch. But we'll take a look through the stash, so if that one changes, don't be alarmed. So there are lots of ways to do the pants. The easiest way, the way we're going to do, is with a pair of leggings that you know fits nicely. So these are a flare bottom, so I will be taking them in the bottom. But we're just gonna take this pattern and use it, because why reinvent the wheel? Now, a lot of times you'll actually be able to find leggings at a secondhand store. And hey, you may even be able to find leggings in this color at a secondhand store. The one thing we want to pay attention to is our stretch. Now these are fleecy on the inside. I think I actually want this to be the outside because it does look darker than this. And I like the texture better than this. This doesn't look very D&D to me. So we're gonna use the wrong side of the fabric because we can do that. And with pants, you really want the stretch to go across the butt and across the knee. You don't need it up and down as much. So with that in mind, we are going to spread out our fabric. So I'm going to take this edge seam and this seam here and lay them down like this. And I'm going to eliminate the center or the side seam, so it's all one piece. I'm going to mark approximately where the hem is. And I'm gonna go from the knee up, because I know that I'm taking in the bottom. And I'm gonna stretch out that waist so that the fabric isn't gathered. And I'm just making a mark vertically where that waistband is. And then I'm coming over here and I'm making sure, oh, it comes in just a little bit, so we will put a little dart in. I'm making sure that what's underneath lays flat. And then down here, I'm just gonna estimate that straight down and this straight down as well. So now using this as our guideline, we're gonna flip this over so we're looking at the other side of the fabric, and we're gonna lay it out. Now you'll notice that this is wider on this side, which is fine. So I'm going to take that into account. I'm gonna stretch the piece that's on top so the piece that underneath is not stretched. And that's just me eyeballing that bottom. And then we're gonna trace that butt seam. Oh, it does go straight out if we stretch it. So I'm gonna take that front in just a tiny amount so I can get rid of this. I don't think I stretched it properly, so it comes all the way across. Now it is lower and then goes up, because most people have a bum. And we wanna add this elastic amount to the top so that we can have a waistband. There we go. Pants. I know I like the fit of these pants. I use them fairly often, pretty much anytime I'm making leggings. because why reinvent the wheel? Now what you do want to do is add seam allowance all the way around. I'm just going to cut this and add the seam allowance as I'm cutting it. If you want to do this out of a mock-up fabric that is not your really good fabric, you can. Just make sure that it has the same amount of stretch as your good fabric, so you don't have super stretchy try-on leggings and then it turns out that they're not stretchy enough. I've made this pattern enough that I feel confident that if there's any issues, I can fix them on the actual fabric. When in doubt, it is always easier to make things larger and take them in than it is to make things smaller and let them out. But there we have some pants. Let's go sew them. So normally we would sew this just with like a zigzag stitch with a wide length, just to baste it together and try it on. I know that this is gonna fit, so I'm just gonna sew it. And to start, I'm gonna sew down the bum and down the crotch. So if you are just trying this on for the first time, I would say sew this all once the way we're going to now with just your zigzag stitch, try it on, and then go back and sew it again with the 2 forward, 1 back, or any other sort of good stretch stitch. Always trim your threads as you go. And when we're sewing this, we're making sure that our good side, the fabric that we want to see at the end, is on the inside. So now, we're going to take apart the 2 legs, find the bottom of those 2 seams we just sewed, so the crotch and the bum, and put those together. Once those are matched up, we're going to sew all the way down one side and then all the way down the other, and then we'll have the legs together. And we may have to take this in when we try it on, but that's why we try things on. And we'll sew up the other leg. And our next step is to try these on and see how they fit. So let's go do that. So I like to try things on inside out because that way if I need to make any adjustments I can. Overall these are fitting great. They're a touch loose at the back, but I want that so I can like sit and stuff. And having the elastic waist will fix that. Now I do feel like they are a little low. I should have given myself more at the top, so I will probably cheat the waistband by just having the elastic here and having the most height that I can. But the bottom is right. They're tight enough without being too tight. I'd say let's bring them over and finish them. So the first thing we're going to do is trim all this extra seam allowance because I don't like having that thickness there. And to start, I'm just going to hem the bottom, and all I'm doing on this is folding it over once and stitching all the way around. I'm only folding it over once because this fabric does not fray. If you have a fabric that does fray, I would recommend folding it twice. And I'm making sure to use a stretch stitch so that this can get over my foot. And then we're just going to do the same on the other foot. And next we're going to jump to the waistband. Now I'm going to take a nice wide black elastic. I like the width because I find it comfier. And I'm going to put it around me to figure out how wide I want it to be. Like what is a comfortable tightness. Then I'm going to fold this in half and find the back half, and I'm going to fold each half in half and find the quarter marks and just put a pin there on every single one and put that just to the side for a moment. Next I'm going to fold the 2 crotch seams together because that will give me where the side seams are or would be, so I can mark those. And now our pants are also in quarters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the back seam and I'm going to put my elastic along that top edge, I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch, and I am sewing to the good side of the pants. And start it. Then what I'm going to do is match up my first 2 pins, stretch out my bottom fabric so it matches the elastic, and sew all the way to that first pin. And I am sewing all along that top edge. So now I'm going to match up my next pin with that front crotch seam and do the same thing. Oh, we'll match up that third pin. And then when we come back to the center, I'm going to make sure that those overlap just a touch. Now I'm going to take a moment, fold up the elastic, and stitch the elastic to itself by just doing a zigzag stitch up and down. So now we can fold up the elastic all the way around and fold it down again. And we're going to stitch all the way around at the top there. Now I like to use the straight stitch. You will have to pull it just a little taut. And the trick with this is really making sure that you're pulling all that fabric up and away and then folding it over. So you should be able to feel the elastic in there so that it's nice and thin. And we're going to trim that extra thread from where we started and where we finished. Now the next part is the last part. So you can see that the elastic comes down, and this way it's going to be too much. So we're just going to stitch from the good side just a little up from the bottom of the elastic. Now most fabrics you'll be able to feel where that is. So mine ends here, which means if I place it so it's in line with this mark on the feed plate, on the plate, then it will cover the elastic. So all I have to do now is make sure that my edge is at this mark here and sew all the way around again. And there we go. Trim that thread. And that stops the elastic from flipping up. So now if we turn these right side up, out, we have a pair of pants. It's also now easy to tell what the front and what the back is because the back has the seam of the elastic. There we go. The leggings. Next up is the tunic. So I'm going to break this up into final thoughts. One of the issues is, and I talked about this when I was talking about the fabric, because this fabric does not stretch up and down, only around, it has a tendency to slowly slip down throughout the day. I think I want to add a panel of just like a similar navy, like from here to here, just to help hold it up, because this is frustrating. I'll try and do that before the tunic video comes out and tell you how that goes. Overall, pretty happy. I like the color. They're leggings. It's pretty straightforward.
Scoot your booty, that booty, and I do the booty scooty. Scoot your booty, that booty, and I do the booty scooty. Scoot your booty, that booty, and I do the booty scooty. Scoot your booty, that booty, and I do the booty scooty. Scoot, scoot, scoot.
Every time. Doing the tight stance. Oh, I should have made pants a little taller. The last time I touched Fenthris, there was an audible snap. And since I'm shooting this weekend so I can have like outdoor footage for the tunic, like step-by-step tutorial and everything, I therefore need to fix it, but I couldn't fix it for tonight because I'm doing this the day before I post it because everything's edited, but I need footage of the pants. I should stand up. Cool. Straight.